Ethiopia, officially known as the Federal Republic of Ethiopia, is located in the Horn of Africa, bordered by Eritrea to the north, Somalia and Djibouti to the east, Sudan and South Sudan to the west, and Kenya to the south. It is the most populous landlocked country in the world, as well as the second most populated African nation, with over 93 million inhabitants. Ethiopia has a unique history, most notably beginning with their strong military that was able to fight off the colonial powers in the late 19th century scramble for Africa.
Right.
The nation was successfully the only African nation that remained uncolonized. Ethiopia also has a very diverse and multilingual population comprised of around 80 different ethnic groups. It has a rich cultural history that separates it from the rest of the world. However, Ethiopia today suffers from major problems such as lack of production in agriculture and gender inequality through several aspects, but most importantly, education.
Agriculture is at the heart of life and economy in Ethiopia. It accounts for 47% of Ethiopia's GDP, 80% of the population's workforce, and 80% of their exported goods. Ethiopia has a long and complicated history regarding their relationship with the land that they so depend on. Up until around 1974, the land was controlled by the various ethnic groups and villages that lived in the area. Then, around 1975, regional government dictated how the land was allocated and used. They abolished tenant farming and distributed land to those who directly worked with the land. Land belonged to the state, but farmers had the right to use the government's property. Today, the centralized Ethiopian government owns the land. Since 1991, the government has tried to improve productivity by instituting the ADLI programs, in which fertilizers and improved seeds were distributed, and the water supply was improved. But the issue of land insecurity remained. The system creates unstable practices of inheritance, sharecropping, and environmentally unsustainable techniques because Ethiopians do not consider themselves owners of the land. This lack of ownership often leads to a cycle of overexploitation in the form of overgrazing, deforestation, and erosion. Weather conditions such as drought and unpredictable flooding, climate change exacerbate land issues and lead to water shortages, famine, and economic repercussions. Subsistence farmers are negatively affected the most, leading to food insecurity. Over 13 million people in Ethiopia are malnourished due to these problems. Ethiopia has the land capacity to feed all of its people, but resources are currently being used inefficiently. Our program aims to find a solution to create a sustainable and dependable agricultural system for the country. To begin to solve these agricultural issues, we'll start by creating a program that pays educated Ethiopian citizens to lobby the government for a land tenure system that puts the ownership in the hands of the farmers to encourage better treatment of the land in the future. We will allocate $1 billion to this project and hopefully begin a general movement in Ethiopia to advocate for land ownership by the people that farm it. In addition, $1 billion will go to the distribution of high-yield and drought-resistant seeds to subsistence farmers, and $1 billion will be invested in the distribution of drip irrigation systems to use less water, while still providing the benefits of irrigation, including maintaining moisture levels in the field at all times, which increase crop yields and improve crop quality. Finally, $1 billion will be spent on an education program for farmers in rural villages regarding sustainable land practices such as crop rotation, cover crops, and storing and preserving surplus food for bad weather periods. Initially, people will be paid to travel to these villages and educate in a hands-on approach, and hopefully education will continue as the wisdom is passed on through generations, creating a more stable food situation and economy in the long run.
Although Ethiopia's economy has expanded in recent years, it still remains largely poor and rooted in tradition, and as a result, women's inequality persists. Almost 3 out of 4 Ethiopian women go through FGM, 40% are married before the age of 18, only 10% of women give birth within health facilities, and the country suffers from one of the world's highest maternal mortality rates. With male dominance instilled as social normacy, 68% of women believe that their husbands reserve the right to beat them. At present, Ethiopia is working towards achieving its Millennium Development Goals, with primary school enrollment quadrupling over the past 20 years. Even with these improvements, only 1 out of 5 girls enrolls in secondary school, and the literacy rate is only 35.1% for women, while it's 50.3% for men, allowing gender inequality to continue throughout the generation. Women's societal position will improve considerably with continued education as they spend less time in a male-dominated household and more time preparing for the workforce. To best educate these women for Ethiopia's most pressing needs, The new curriculum will focus heavily on agricultural sustainability and midwife training in localized villages. We will spend $3 billion on teacher training and salaries for the most effective educational experience. In an effort to boost female enrollment, our educational policies will operate on an incentive program. Using $2 billion in the budget, we will provide necessary agricultural supplies for families who keep their children, especially their girls, in school. Using the remaining $1 billion, we will start a program to send those girls who excel to universities, thus creating an even greater incentive for success in tandem with female empowerment.
Clearly, Ethiopia is faced with major hurdles that are stunting its transition into a developed nation. Because of the unstable and unproductive land tenure practices, their agriculture often goes through boom and bust periods in which the people struggle with famine and an unreliable income. Droughts, erosion, overgrazing, and other environmental impacts also severely affect Ethiopia's agriculture, which accounts for about half of its GDP and employs the vast majority of its citizens. Gender inequality is also prevalent throughout the nation. Women are enrolling in schools at a significantly lower rate than men. Traditional values that encourage male dominance constantly push women into a lower social caste. We are confident that the solutions we proposed of shifting land ownership to the people can stabilize the agricultural sector and provide a living to the rural population. And empowering women through our educational incentive programs can help Ethiopia solve numerous problems and progress into a self-sustaining country.